All right, thank you. Okay. So you'll notice I'm going to, before we start this hearing, I'm going to take a little while and make some introductory remarks. All right, and I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. One is that this is a very high profile case. We believe there's a lot of people watching it. We believe members of the public, other attorneys, news media. All right. And it has come to our attention that there's been statements made that kind of indicate that people don't understand the procedure that's involved, kind of what's going on. And so I'm going to make some opening remarks before we get into the hearing that are intended to sort of provide a little bit of information so that when people come away from this hearing, they'll have a better understanding of how these proceedings work. On March 7th, 2024, we received an email from the Attorney General's office and it says, hey, there's going to be a summary judgment motion argued on Monday, March 11th, 2024 in Calhoun County at 9 a.m. And the subject there is whether or not the court's going to strike down RCW 941, 370, and 375. If the court does so, the Attorney General's office will seek immediate emergency relief. Okay. Now, importantly, that email was CC'd to Gators Guns. Okay. So Gators Guns knew that the Attorney General's office had contacted our court, and we knew that they knew. Okay. I get back into my research. Okay. Focusing specifically on these LCMs. Okay, I already had a pile of research, so I went and piled up more research. Okay, March 11th comes and goes. We're waiting. Is there going to be a ruling? We get, again, an email from the Attorney General's office and CC'd to Gators Guns and says, well, the court heard the motion, took it under advisement, and there will be a ruling coming out later. Okay, all right, fine. We just wait. Okay, so we go ahead. I continue doing my research. Okay, it's interesting to me. Personal side note, I'm a gun enthusiast. I own firearms. I learned to shoot when I was 9 years old. Okay, there's a species of ground squirrel in Spokane County that's on an endangered list, probably because of me. All right, I fired everything from a 22 to an AR-15 to a 1911 Argentine Army Mauser. All right. So I know guns I know a lot about guns. I've been studying them for over 50 years. Okay, it's a subject of particular interest to me. All right. So anyway, we're waiting to see what happens. Okay. So I'm doing my research. Okay. Now we try to be efficient. We try to be quick and, organized in what we do. So not surprisingly, I set aside some boilerplate. We have templates for our rulings and whatnot and so forth. Okay. So eventually, on March 11th, when was that? That was, when was it? April 8th. Okay. It was a Monday, April 8th. Okay. Our court receives an email at 3:17 p.m. Okay. It's from the Attorney General's office. Attached to it is the order from the Superior Court. Okay, the folks in the clerk's office who receive these things, they push a button and it goes immediately to me. Okay, so here I've got the Superior Court's order. All right, now I had anticipated, based on my research in the Guardian's Guns case, I had a pretty good notion of how this was going to be argued. Okay, so I had a really good notion of what the briefing probably looked like in the trial court. I didn't dig into the trial court briefing because it's just kind of, I didn't need to. I wanted to research the case law out there and do some history research, all right? So I had a really good idea of what the briefing was going to look like. And, to the trial judge's credit, he put in a really nice table of contents, okay? It became very clear to me right away, probably within 15, 20 minutes of reading that order, that there were, in my view, some highly debatable issues. Okay, and it became more and more clear as I went through that order. The emergency motion arrived by email, again CC to Gators Guns, at about 4:14 p.m. All right, so I look at it. It's shorter, about 30 pages. But you know what? Just looking at it, I found that I had anticipated all the arguments that the Attorney General was going to make. All right, based again on my research and my experience working with the previous case. So it was easy. All right, so I continued looking at both the trial court order, the Attorney General's motion. I've got my boilerplate, I've got my template, and then there's another part of the exercise. I'm the whole time I'm kind of balancing. What are the, what are the harms to the moving party, the Attorney General's office, compared to the harms for the non-moving party, which is Gators Gun. All right, and so I ultimately made a decision that a temporary stay, not just a temporary stay, was warranted. And again, I was remembering what happened in the California case. So the California case, when they entered this injunction, everybody went into this just buying spree of these LCMs. Okay, I wasn't sure what was happening. Okay, but I figured, well, maybe that's happening. Okay, that could be happening. Maybe there's word out there. Maybe people are jumping into their cars to drive to Idaho. Maybe people are sitting on their computers or on their smartphones and they're ordering 10 packs of 30 round magazines or something, over the internet. I don't know, but there could be something going on out there. So I was concerned about that. So I went ahead and decided, I made the call, all right, that I was going to enter a temporary stay. Okay, because another thing I was concerned about was that I knew it was going to be a week and a half or so before we could have this hearing. All right. So I felt it was appropriate, prudent, and in the interest of public health and welfare and safety, okay, to enter a temporary stay. But, was my hunch about what happened in California, was it correct in
Yes,
what happened?
Yeah. That was completely correct. In fact, in the 2 hours that the trial court's injunction, approximately 2 hours, that the trial court's injunction was in effect, Gators Guns itself sold hundreds of large capacity magazines. It posted on social media saying that it was going to be open hours that it was not normally open. We attached all that to the declaration of Victoria Johnson, showing newspaper articles and social media posts showing that firearms retailers in the state were selling large capacity magazines as fast as they possibly could.
Yeah, I saw you posted like this thing on YouTube. And can you tell me about that? What's that about?
I didn't post anything on YouTube, Your Honor.
No. I meant you cited a thing on some YouTube thing, and I saw. Anyway, what is it? Just tell me what it is. I haven't looked at it.
Absolutely, Your Honor. So that's William Kirk. He's an advocate for gun rights, and he posted this before the injunction was issued, and it was instructions about how to buy large capacity magazines as fast as possible if an injunction were issued. And he was very explicit that he anticipated that a stay would eventually be granted. And so his argument or his instruction to folks who wanted to buy LCMs while there was an injunction pending was to act as fast as possible and to purchase injunctions or purchase large capacity magazines as quickly as possible.
Did he just post like one thing there, or did he
No, Your Honor. Bill Kirk is a prolific YouTube poster. He's constantly talking to other folks in the gun community within Washington State in order to advise them about how to follow the law, and I think he's actually pretty explicit about that. But in order also to take advantage.
Okay, because there's a guy I went to law school with named Bill Kirk, so I'm wondering if it's the same guy. Maybe it is. Maybe I'll have to look at it. I mean, you cited it. So
on one of his videos, he did in fact reference being a fellow Gonzaga alum like yourself in the same class.
Yeah. Well, good for him. Okay, thank you, Mr. McGinty. You've got your 5 minutes for rebuttal. Okay, who's going to argue for Gators Guns?
Austin Hatcher, Your Honor.
All right, okay. Mr. Hatcher, okay, would you understood my introduction, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, about how this came transpired?
I do, Your Honor. Yes.
Okay, that's good. Because I'm told there's people saying some real nasty things out there. Okay, but I just wanted to set the record straight. Okay, you got that?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
All right, okay, you go ahead and proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Analysis, and in its opinion, it's 55 pages, dense constitutional analysis, and I think it did a good job setting forth its rationale. It explicitly addressed some of the Ninth Circuit and federal district court analysis from the Ninth Circuit, as well as the court in Oregon, which I note also found a LCM restriction in the state of Oregon as unconstitutional. The Court of Appeals in Oregon declined to stay that.
I saw that order. I mean, you attached it with the declaration. Okay, I want to point out a couple of things. Okay, for one thing, the Oregon statute is rather different than the Washington statute. It's got like a registration requirement. Okay, the Oregon court applies a much different standard as it comes to stays. All right, and second and third, the Oregon, no disrespect to the commissioner in Oregon, it was very well written, but it has here about as much binding effect as a restaurant menu. So the point I'm making is that talking about what people had back in those days compared to what they have now is it's mind-boggling, the technological difference. But you go ahead, all right?
Yes, Your Honor. And on that point, remanded, vacated, and then the U.S. Supreme Court.
I read the district court's decision in that case, and I have to say, and also I have to say, the trial court here I think was heavily influenced by some very kind of questionable, expert testimony, that sort of thing. Ms. Lubinsky, who I think you can't trust at all. A little concerned that both the court in California on that Bonta case and the trial court here was heavily influenced by that type of stuff. But go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was just going to note that the U.S. Supreme Court granted certiorari
until all this came to head. All right, but anyway, you go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, I think it's if the LCMs are allowed to be purchased.
Well, here's something that's not speculative. Okay, here's something that's not speculative: is that the representatives, the legislators, acting as representatives of the people, the elected representative people, enacted this legislation for the purpose of easing people's minds about the danger of a mass shooting happening where the shooter has, for example, as happened in Las Vegas, has happened in the Aurora theater shooting, that type of thing, has maybe like a 100-round magazine and is going out there and just slaughtering people. They have to pause or reload. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, and I think that's exactly why LCMs facilitate effective self-defense as well. Let's say that Your Honor was in your home at 3 a.m. Some of these crazies who have been calling you recently about this decision, or they show up and they're armed and they're going to knock down your door. I venture to guess that the court would rather have a 30-round magazine than a 7-round magazine.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. You know what I would do? You know what I would have? Here's what I would have. Okay, if somebody went and knocked down my door, I'd have an M1911A1 like my dad had from World War II, because it's got a nice big round thing. And it'll or a 12-gauge shotgun, which might have 4 or 5 rounds. Come on. I don't buy this idea that you need to have you know, an AR-15 or a Glock or something with 15 or 30 or whatever rounds, you know. I know shooting. I know I'm familiar with it. So I know shooting. I know I'm familiar with it. So I know shooting. I know I'm familiar with it. So anyway, you know, I don't find that persuasive, but you go ahead.
For veterans such as myself, other veterans in Washington State, the familiarity of that weapon system is also why they choose those weapons.
Okay,
now,
I got a real problem with that. I know a lot of veterans, you know, and I understand that. I really do understand that. Okay, but if you're trained to operate an AR-15 or an M4 or an M249 or whatever, you know, it seems to me it wouldn't be that much difficult to adapt your shooting style to a simpler weapon, you know, like a pump action shotgun or a revolver or something of that nature. But respecting your service, and thank you for your service, Mr. Hatch. I really appreciate that. But I just don't agree with that. But you go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Additionally, but I'm not sure that LCM laws are going to solve that.
Is there like a force field around Washington that sort of like it makes
not to my knowledge, Your Honor.
Okay, all right. So the point is, you know, I read your briefing where you said there's only been, you know, a handful of them. Like you identified 4. Actually, I think there might have only been 3. I mean, there's some we don't know what they are. Okay, but in Nevada, you know, they had one mass shooting. It took out, you know, wounded more than 400 people and killed 60. You know, those little kids, they couldn't intervene. All right. So anyway, you know, I just want to point out, you know, this thing about the threat, I think, is not really all that speculative as a general threat. Okay, is the point I'm getting at. But go ahead, please. You don't have a lot of time left. You go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. And ultimately, I think.
Okay, all right. And LCMs, they're not like bananas, right? They don't go bad or something, right? I mean, you can keep them in the inventory for a while until the stay is lifted. Is that correct? I mean, if you prevail, assuming you prevail. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe they can be maintained in inventory. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. I think you're about out of time.